An expose from Film Threat exposes the fact that the WGA is actively asking people all about their immutable characteristics and even who they sleep with. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and joining me today is one of my favorite Hollywood fixtures, that being Lou Wasserman's ghost. Lou, you have some experience with the WGA, don't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Member and experience in other ways, too, because some of the other guilds that I was involved with would send me to the WGA meetings when there was a strike to kind of be there. Well, so tell me what happened last night, guy. So, yeah.
And we appreciate that kind of resource here on That Park Place. And it's one of these things where we wish that we could just say, you guys have no idea how qualified this person is. And also, you put a good spin on things, as a good writer is wont to do, you know?
There are some of those left, I'm told.
Yeah, let's just talk about this right here. The basis of the article being that the WGA has sent out surveys that have all these checkboxes on them that they want their writers to classify themselves as things in order to be considered for jobs. These being their sexual preferences, their national origin, and let's see what else.
Disabilities.
Yes,
that's a big one too.
Yeah. If you wanna say you're a writer with dwarfism, you can qualify for certain jobs as well.
Right. Of course, along those lines, with the Snow White thing, you should be able to add being a barista to your disabilities.
That might get you a film executive job, in fact.
Yeah, well.
Yep. All right, let's
But
go.
you can't have any flat white because that's the wrong color.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they maybe they should. I won't go down that
We
path.
could go forever with that.
We
but
we
anyway.
could. A veteran screenwriter's plot twist on Hollywood's DEI cultural shift. This from Anonymous, one of my
And
favorite authors.
may I be a very, very upfront disclaimer? This ain't me, guys. I didn't write this, although parts of it I wish I had.
I appreciate that clarification. Of course, if you do want a sample of LW Ghost's writings, you can go over to That Park Place, and it's excellent. And I love the way you can turn a phrase. An open letter from a white writer to the film and TV business. No wonder you wanted to get away from that ugly moniker right there, white writer. There. For the last 20 years, I've been a working professional screenwriter. From 2004 to 2018, I was sent on hundreds of meetings with some of the best studio executives, producers, and directors in the business. I loved it. It was an opportunity to chat with like-minded people who love film, grew up with movies, and were making them at the highest level. We discussed ideas, plot, characters, and their arcs, and who's the audience. Maybe chat about subtext and themes. It felt like an episode of Jon Favreau's Dinner for Five. Sometimes you would end up getting work. Other times you made a great connection. Everyone was intelligent, film and TV savvy, and had a deep understanding of the business side of the industry. By the way, Jon Favreau's Dinner for Five, you got a little typo here. He's a Jon, John. Dinner for Five, they basically stole that format for the Lucasfilm behind-the-scenes stuff for The Mandalorian, where they just have five people around a table.
Yeah.
It's because it's a great format, and Jon Favreau does an excellent job shepherding that. So let's get to the meat of this. In 2019, things started to change, and quickly. Here we see this one of the many check boxes that they would ask people to consider checking here. Lou, you pointed this out to me backstage, that you have the option of selecting all
on all of these categories, which would make you a pan. Not even sexual. A pan human being, although probably that's prejudice for the furries.
Yes,
so anyway.
At the risk of running afoul of the YouTube censors, the hetero a bisexual, gay, lesbian, queer.
There you go.
And of course, this one being of some debate on whether or not that is okay to say. I think that's becoming a quote unquote our word situation. Suddenly,
wait,
subtext.
Don't go past that next one, because once upon a time, people were suing over ageism. Now you're asking them to be ageist against.
Oh, yes, that's a very good point. Writers over 40, writers over 50, and writers over 60.
You'd think they would have put in over 20 and over 30 just to cover the map, to cover themselves, but no.
Yeah, or even under a certain age here.
or
Are
act as if you were under a certain age.
I think that I don't know how old the people who wrote Echo were, but I got to say they seem a little wet behind the ears. They don't
Older
seem
by
like
the
they've.
end than they were at the beginning, I'll tell you
Whew,
that.
I was much older by the end of that show. I felt it in my bones, like butter spread over too much bread, to steal some words from Tolkien. Suddenly, subtext and themes became the main point of discussing a project or IP. The first question in every meeting became, what can we say with this project, or what can we teach people with this story? Plot, character, and audience were now secondary and sometimes not even discussed. Can we just quantify, Lou, what is the difference between these two ideas, what it used to be and what it is now?
Well, we used to care about plots and characters and entertaining the audience as opposed to teaching them something. Or, well, and it's not just showbiz. I mean, what did the lady from Bud Light say? Well, basically, we wanted to tell all those beer guzzling white guys, screw you. How dare you not like what we're doing with Dylan Mulvaney? How dare you not like, said Target, that we put tuck suits in our swimsuit section or whatever it was. This whole I'm going to make men uncomfortable is a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
And
Agreed.
that was look, if she had mentioned that in passing, fine. But when that's my focus as an activist. That's what I try and do every day. Oh, entertain people? Yeah, well, okay, if it'll get them in the theater so I can lecture them.
And I always get not, I always take a little heat if I say, if you said it this way, you could say the same thing and not be in trouble for it. I would say audiences like to be challenged at least a little bit. Most people like to have their ideas unresolved for a moment so they can chew on it for a little while. Where this right here seems like it's a shift from profit to preaching, and that is never a good idea for the movie business, because it is the movie business.
Yes, it is.
You have to make money at the end of the day, and and you can't use your big tent poles in order to try to fund the rest of everything else if there's no funding coming from the big tent poles.
Especially when the whole reason you want to use the tent poles is because you can get people into the theater to be lectured to with those, as opposed to something new that they don't know.
Yes, yes, very much. So let's continue on.
Iron Man as Trojan horse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Well, there are so many movies that no one would have gone to see in the MCU if the MCU didn't exist. It was the longest running, most expensive TV show ever made. It just happened to release in theaters, and you had to buy a ticket for every person watching it, which is a great streaming model. But it wasn't a streaming model. So.
Right.
These new execs weren't savvy and business minded execs. Oh, well, that sounds right. They were young and with no track record or comprehension of the bottom line. When the streaming war started and the money hose was turned on, those experienced executives started relying on these young guns to pick up the slack. But the kids were less focused on the hero's journey, that being, of course, Joseph Campbell, and more concerned with taking down the patriarchy. Man, Joseph Campbell did one of the greatest branding things ever when he takes the basic concept of the monomyth and makes it into Joseph Campbell. Good on him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which leads us to the next point. The reality is that for the past 5 years, white straight male writers and directors with experience and successful track records have been sidelined. We talk about it over coffee or after screenings. We've essentially been told that because of our race and gender, we need not apply. At one point, my agent told me they couldn't put me up for any open writing assignments or TV staffing jobs because the execs only wanted to hear takes on the material from BIPOC or female or LGBTQ writers. You could get a triple threat there if you wanted to, I suppose.
And let me qualify what he's saying with this. Another reason why they don't want to talk to older, experienced people of any color is because they know more than these young executives do, and they don't want to be shown up.
I would agree. I would
There's
say
an
that
ego factor, is what I'm trying to say, beyond the political and social one.
when you hear somebody like David Mamet or Frank Darabont.
Whose new book I highly recommend to anybody who really wants to understand the biz. I'm trying to remember the title now. Shame on me.
Well, I mean, I'll Google David Mamet. I'm sure you'll come up with it here in a
I've
moment.
already done it. Everywhere in Oink Oink is the name of the book. Everywhere in Oink Oink, an embittered, dyspeptic, and accurate report of 40 years in Hollywood. People, get it? And if you're like me and read everything on Kindle, get the hardcover because he also illustrates it with his own cartoons, and they're damn hard to see on your Kindle.
That's great. Let's see. Some shows even started instituting staff quotas from that 40 to 50% of the writing staff had to be people of color. That right there sounds like a civil rights violation.
It certainly does to me, yeah.
Yeah. And I could gush about Mamet and Patterson. Actually, he did a master class, and it was a lot of fun. They're listening to these veteran writers talk about what's good and what's bad, and how you can violate the rules, but you have to know the rules before you violate them. Oh man, I love listening to all that. On to the next page here. I know many showrunners who hate this, not because they didn't want to hire new writers and foster them. They didn't want half their staff coming from a pool of young, inexperienced writers who knew nothing about working in a writer's room, production, post, or deadlines. This would be the most frustrating thing to me. I love shepherding new talent. At that Park Place, we talk about it all the time. How do we get somebody from fresh and excited to delivering on a constant basis? And I would say that's probably our greatest what's that? Our greatest challenge right here is when we're trying to expand is finding someone not just with the urge to succeed, but also the talent and the inclination to work within the system that we need to have. Lou, do you have any comment on this section here?
You know, um, when we heard Iger say that, well, we need to have more executive supervision, and that was our problem, what they mean is they're hiring a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing and having them supervised by people who also don't know what they're doing but know what they're selling as far as ideology is concerned.
Right, right. There'll be a system like Gore Verbinski and Jerry Bruckheimer. Gore Verbinski had not done a movie on the scale of Pirates of the Caribbean when he did that film, but you can have someone like Jerry Bruckheimer come in, who is a master producer. I mean, top of his game. He can come in and fill in all those gaps and say, well, if you need to, coordinate a 3 cities worth of people into making this and build new infrastructure in order to accomplish shooting on the island of Dominica, you can have someone come in and accommodate all of
And
that.
and
But
by the way, this situation is not new in the sense of people who know how to cut to the chase and get the job done. Let me tell you a very brief story. I was once not doing the show, but I was there sort of attending because a friend of mine was in a rehearsal on Cheers. And you all remember the Cheers set, and you remember that kind of area on the left in the back where there were a few tables. And Rhea Perlman is doing her thing, and she's doing a line. And Jim Burrows, the director, said, wait, 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 Rhea, take 3 steps downstage and then deliver the line. And she said the classic thing, well, Jim, what's my motivation? And he said, because I can't see you up there. And she got it.
yeah,
Well, you don't have anybody with that level of strictly let's make it work functional experience supervising these people, and they need more supervision than people who are experienced and have learned these lessons.
right. Man, that's such a good point there. There are some moves you make to feed your belly, and there are other moves to feed your soul. But you got to feed your belly in order
But
to
either
continue
way,
existing.
the audience, if they can't hear the joke, can't laugh at the joke, and so that's the point, isn't it?
Yes,
Or should
yes,
be, or should
yes.
be.
Now, no. Just to circle back to finish my point about Gore Verbinski is he was an accomplished filmmaker and was able to tell a story, and then they came in with all the technical tools in order to accommodate him doing it on a larger scale,
Right.
as opposed to, oh, we're just going to take somebody who did one independent film, and now we want to use them for all of these check boxes we have right here.
And when the director lady says from day to day on the set she didn't know where she was, she just had to get the pages out. How do you think the actors found out where they was at that moment without having the director to guide them because she didn't know either?
Especially if we're talking about like the Marvels, I don't think
Yeah.
that most of those actors knew where they were. And if they did know where they were, it seems like in post that changed. All right, let's continue on. Is this
Sure.
illegal? Probably, but hey, I'm not an attorney. There's no way to find out anyway, because if you ask any questions about this, you'll be labeled a racist or called out for your white male privilege. If you so much as raise an eyebrow, there's a risk you'll never work again. Why this is anonymous. This may not be obvious at first glance. There sure seem to be a lot of white dudes at the Golden Globes, right? Well, this doesn't impact the top 2% of writers, showrunners, and directors, since they're in the rarefied air where they get work no matter what. It's those of us with decades of experience working on some of your favorite TV shows and films that are now sitting on the sidelines waiting. Lou, did you have something there?
The product shows it.
Yes. Yes. You know, Amazon right now has become the number two streamer behind Netflix. I haven't looked at those figures at what is driving that. First of all, Reacher, which is a huge jacked white dude who is going out and kicking butt and taking names,
Yeah.
and and the ladies seem to like it. I think the men are there for the traditional. I'm gonna. The comments that I've seen are, I could follow this guy into battle.
The old line about the James Bond movies was that men want to be him and women want to be with him.
Right, and then the women are thinking, yeah, I wouldn't mind him coming back home to me. That's not a problem. But also, Amazon has Freevee, which I believe that's rolled into Amazon.
Yes.
So that is all classic television, which they're fine to put ads on.
It's not all classic, and here's the thing. I was just discussing this with Pro in a different discussion about Reacher and Amazon and budgets. Remember that the longest running character in streaming, in the history of streaming, is Harry Bosch. And remember,
that's so well written too.
Wait. But Amazon had 8 seasons of Harry, and they said, but now he's not a cop anymore because he got older. Why don't we do a different series and put it on Freebie with commercials? And now they have Bosch Legacy. Well, now Amazon has gone one better and will with Reacher, which is, hey, everybody, as of January, you're getting ads with your Amazon.
Yes.
Unless you want to pay us another $3.
Right.
As I said to Pro, they're cutting out the middleman.
Right.
And they're learning the lesson of how to make this stuff pay for itself and how to make it work. And the other thing I said, I should probably just not keep repeating myself here in 2 conversations in the last couple hours.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
But my point was, it would be real interesting with Reacher if you were at the publisher. Reacher is an all-American character, even if an English guy writes it. The books, I mean, Lee Child was a television executive in England before he got into novels. But I would guarantee you that Reacher, as a book series, although it had some international translated into so many languages distribution, was not exactly the huge hit it was in the US and the UK. But now that the TV show is going to go all over the world thanks to Amazon, I bet you the book sales go crazy with people saying, well, where'd this guy come from?
Right.
And they'll start translating it. I would love to see the sales in Japan or China or India, let alone Germany and France and whatever, of, oh, look, here's a whole series of books you didn't know about that we just made in your language.
Yes.
And I said, it's like the movie spins off The Ride, which spins off the dinner show at the hotel, which spins off the themed restaurant on the cruise ship, which spins off the merchandise, which leads to the next movie.
Right.
It's the classic Disney formula, but Disney isn't doing it.
Right, and there needs to be an abundance of quality across the board in order for that to happen, and that's something that Disney is a great example of someone who has slowly whittled away the aspects that are quality, and now all you have is a bunch of merchandise that you hope people hold on to. That's not going to last for long if they don't fix the situation they have there. So let's continue on.
This next one is really interesting.
No institution reinforces this more than the WGA. One glance at their monthly calendar event shows a Latinx Writers Committee. I have yet to meet a Latinx person, though. I do know a lot of Latinos.
I don't know many Latinos who like the term Latinx. In fact, many are vociferously against it. But hey.
This is white liberals colonizing the Latin language and trying to quote unquote fix it for them, and I find it offensive on behalf of Latino people, even though they don't need me to be offended for them. The LGBTQ plus Writers Committee meeting, a Committee of Black Writers meeting, a Middle Eastern Writers Committee meeting, a Women's Writers Committee meeting, and an Asian American Writers Committee meeting, to just name a few.
You know, my terribly sexist joke at the Directors Guild, we had for a long time, still do, what they called the Women's Steering Committee. And I said, I've been trying to steer them for years. Can I go and learn how? So anyway,
And as all good writers
reprobate
do.
sexist that I am.
No, no, it's a great joke, and if anyone doesn't take it in the right spirit, I would say get a sense of humor.
And
Um,
everybody at the guild did take it the right way in those days. Now, I think they'd be afraid to laugh out loud for fear somebody would have a problem.
Exactly, exactly. And as all good writers do, is leading into the end of that last paragraph is leading into the beginning of the next paragraph. Here's a good transition for you. Can you imagine if there was a white writers committee meeting? We might be murdered. And the saddest part of all that is that most of the people who would fill that room are some of the most liberal people I know, people who have gone out of their way
Yep.
to foster new and unique voices. Yeah, new and unique voices are great. Taika Waititi was a new and unique voice until all of this diversity madness ruined him for the rest of the world. He might have been a little crazy before we met him, but at least he was making better movies at the
Yep.
time.
Yep.
Check out the WGA's own 2020 Inclusion and Equity Report and make your own conclusion on the WGA's priorities on this. When creating a writer's profile on the WGA website, there is one box to check if you're heterosexual, 3 choices under transgender, and 6 under LGBTQ. Not sure what those statistics have to do with writing a great episode of The Witcher. Ooh, I was surprised to find that that is continuing on here. Um, we're going a little long here, so I'm going to go to the
Sure, go ahead.
to more of the conclusions. Again, look at that right there. And
And as I've pointed out before, there's some big errors on here. In fact,
yes,
first of all, for the one we've already mentioned of Latinx, Latinx was supposed to include all Latino, but how come, for example, they've got go a little further, Dominican and Nicaraguan, but they don't have El Salvadoran, or they don't have. I mean, how far can you go? Meanwhile, in Middle Eastern, the big stick out is Ashkenazi Jewish. Well, I resemble that remark, and let me tell you, folks, in case you don't know, there are basically 2 large families of Judaism and Jewish heritage, not just belief, but ethnicity. Ashkenazi means Eastern European.
which is not Middle Eastern by most definitions of
Well,
Eastern
they might say,
European.
well, the first people in the post World War II era were people escaping Europe, but the other is Sephardic, which is everything from Spain all through North Africa. There's a whole heck of a lot of Ethiopian Jews and North African Jews in Israel. What are they? What
They
are
are
they, Writers Guild?
they are not easily classified, and therefore they are frightening to the Writers Guild. I
Yeah.
might
Anyway,
guess.
and how is Israeli different? I mean, anyway, this whole thing, God.
Yes, yes.
East African, North African, Southwest African, Western African, unspecified.
I'd like to go into the Welsh meeting. I bet the Welsh meeting has some interesting accents.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes.
this paragraph is a great summation here. The blame for this mess is threefold. Young creative execs with no understanding of business or what audiences want gained too much influence during the streaming wars. They took it upon themselves to lead the change in reinterpreting IP, changing successful comic books, novels, and remakes into projects that had something to say, not to entertain. Why even bother with IP if you don't respect your source material? The WGA followed their lead and threw a huge part of their own membership under the bus in a race to bring in new members. And lastly, this new class of writers who weren't ready yet to step up to the plate worked on a lot of product that the general public didn't want to see and didn't relate to. What happens next is anyone's guess. The TV is contracting. This is such an indictment right here. There were 600 TV shows in the last year, and now there are only going to be, from what I hear, 300.
Yeah,
TV is shrinking as a when people were glued to their sets because of COVID and being stuck inside, they had everyone's captive audience right there, and
right.
now we they have abdicated their responsibility to entertain in order to feed the profits of the company, so that they can do their little pet projects here,
In
and
fact,
they
you
can
could
do
say
their little
that
weird
that
things.
the COVID lockup is what made people aware of this sea change in philosophy first, entertainment second. Just as, for example, people watching their kids' Zoom classes rather than being in the school made them aware of the curriculum changes that were being put on.
Yes,
I mean,
agreed. And I love, from my personal philosophical standpoint, I love the fact that families being closer together caused a shift in the culture to make people stand up and say, you know what, guys, this is not okay. and
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 and parents to say all those things I used to think I could trust, like my school, like Disney, like certain TV shows, maybe I can't anymore, and maybe I have to do a little more careful monitoring.
right.
Which, regardless of the reason, keeping track of what your kids are exposed to, that's used to be something called good parenting.
Right, right. Being aware of who their friends are and what their ideas are, and knowing your
Yeah,
children well enough to
yeah.
help guide their minds and try to raise them up to live in a world that is that maybe doesn't always have their best interests at heart. So, Lou, I want to thank you so much for being here. Do you have any final thoughts here before we wrap up?
Well, the Writers Guild is, if as we think people are finally waking up to the whole DEI stuff and starting to reject it en masse rather than just a few headline grabbing things, the Writers Guild is once again behind. And I would commend you. We're very nice complimenting the articles I've done on TPP. There's one I did at the very beginning that you can still search for and find about what I call lead time. When movies take 3 years to get from, hey, let's put on a show, to your local movie theater, they're 3 years behind the culture as it has moved on. And I
Mhm.
hope our culture is moving on beyond this kind of nonsense, but clearly the Writers Guild isn't.
I would agree, and that's why I sometimes I think, and I'm not going to name the film here because it's above my content rating. There are films that come along that are like a breath of fresh air. Like, how did it take so long for someone to say this? It's because it took a long time for the book to come out, and then for the meetings to happen to get the rights to the book, and then for the screenplay to happen. So these things don't just pop out, despite what Lucasfilm might think.
And you know, one of the things that's happening on the genre guys is we're finding movies where you read about the history of it and you find out that this director or this studio bought the rights in the galleys. Said, you know, because studios used to do that. They used to buy up books like crazy,
Yes.
thinking, well, maybe some of them will work for us, or maybe we'll have a star that fits this character, or I'm buying it for this person, but it turns out it'll be this person.
Right, and I forget which of the big studios officially closed their book buying department there a
Oh,
few years ago. But I want to thank you so much for being here, Lou, and thank you everyone for listening this far into the video. This is a story that Film Thread is doing a lot more investigative journalism lately. I like Chris Gore and Alan Ing, anyways,
me too.
but the fact that they are now doing this kind of work makes me all the more want to show the spotlight on them. We don't always agree on every single aspect of the way people should live their lives, but that being said, they're good, solid people, and I appreciate what they are doing over there. So I want to say, go check out this article. They're also doing some expose work on the Disney company. They've had a lot of animators reach out, and there's a series called The D Files, specifically talking about the firing of John Lasseter that Disney tried to they tried to cover up the reason why they decided to fire the man who basically gave them all of their success from, I want to say, 2007 to around 2016. So the great Disney decade of content over there was under John Lasseter's tutelage. And if you want to see, I don't want to say it's all John Lasseter being gone, but if you want to see the drain from him leaving until now, I would put a lot on it right there. So
And they just laid off 500 people, or are about to.
yes, yes, they are about to lay off 300 people or reduce workforce.
Yeah.
I've had a source reach out that has connections with that. We're going to be covering that on, I believe, on Monday on that Park Place. If you are a Pixar animator and you think you're about to be laid off or maybe offered another contract, stop on by that Park Place because we might want to talk about how Disney has handled this in the past. That being said, everybody,
Wait,
please.
one more thing. One more
Yes,
thing.
sir.
I know you're pressed for time. The reason why Film Threat has gone more into this is because so many people trusted them enough to reach out to them anonymously. Now, we haven't been around as long, and maybe we're still establishing our credentials, but speaking as somebody who approached you guys and said, please keep my identity for a lot of reasons behind this invention I came up with, that has been respected in every way. Everybody here and on the Pro channel has gone out of their way to keep me safe And I mean that very really. So if you're somebody who's worried but has something to say, we are a place to go to.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate that. And yes, we are very careful with our sources here on that Park Place, of course, and we love all of your opinions here, Lou. Now that being said, sometimes we do butt heads on the fringes here, but that creates a great conversation, and we're always willing to accept when we might be wrong on something here. Which the need for clarification, I think, was one of the reasons that you reached out. So
Yes.
thank you so much on that. All right, everybody, please like this video if you like this video. Drop a comment if you have questions and or if you have something to say. We love hearing from our audience and also hearing from our detractors who think that we're just full of baloney. So thank you so much. Please consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.